Managing a small team or business comes with a unique set of challenges. With limited resources and manpower, it's easy for things to feel chaotic and out of your control. How can you, as a leader, accomplish your goals while keeping your team engaged, effective, and accountable? This podcast will give you practical strategies you can implement now to lead your team or business to reach its fullest potential. Welcome to the Organizing Chaos podcast with your host, Danny Coleman.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Organizing Chaos, where we talk about small, practical strategies for small teams and small businesses. You'll have to forgive me. We customize our setup every time that I move to somewhere else. Mike's a little bit off to the side here. So,
right.
So if you feel like I'm trying to talk you into something or be sly, I'm not. I'm just trying to make sure you get a good vocal quality here.
Sound good to me.
But yeah, today I've got Marcus Meazzo with us today. And did I pronounce your last name correctly?
That's right, actually.
There's a little bit of
really
Meazzo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a little Italian.
Cool. That's what I thought.
Italian. Yeah.
So Mr. Meazzo here today is with me with Meazzo Design Company, and we're going to talk a little bit about his business and how he got here. And Marcus, thank you again so much for having me in your home.
Thank you.
And for being on the show.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Love seeing you.
So tell me a little bit about Meazzo Design Company.
Okay.
And how you got there, how this came about.
Yeah. So, well, first off, I want to tell you I'm really excited to be on your show, and,
thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity. And it really started back when I was working at Dave Ramsey. I was there for 4 years, originally from California, and moved out here to work for him, and saw a lot of great things there. Learned a lot of great processes and whatnot when it comes to the branding piece of branding a personality and a movement. And so when I left there just to branch out and do my own thing, I took a lot of that with me, and also from past experience. And I decided, hey, I think I want to give this entrepreneurship thing a go. So it's been about roughly 9 months.
Okay.
And what I do is I brand companies.
Okay.
I first, my process is starts with clarity.
Right.
It really, a lot of people jump into design. They just want to get a logo done, or they want to get a website done. But what I love about doing what I do is I have a real passion to dig out the gems from the purpose that people have in their hearts.
How do you do that?
Well, I ask the right questions, like you.
That's me.
Yeah. I ask the right questions. I think a lot of people don't ask themselves enough right questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes someone to look in from the outside in to really help them dig through that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do that. And then what I do is from there, once we have an idea of who they are, who their customers are, and where they want to go, then I help them create their manifesto, which is everything that represents their brand.
Okay, so is that like a linear document, like a story, what does that look like?
Yeah, generally it is a little bit linear.
Okay.
It starts with a discovery. It just really starts with just asking the right questions, and really going through all the things that needs to be dug up.
Okay.
For the client. Usually people who come to me have a little bit of a fog.
Yeah.
And they don't know necessarily, they know what they're doing, but they don't know how to necessarily create a niche for it, or they just are not happy with the results that they're getting when they're marketing their business. And what that really comes down to is helping your customers really understand what you do and how you can change their lives or solve their problems.
So what's some of the, I guess, where did you pick up, or I guess kind of how did you get to here? Is this everything that we always teach is always like a culmination of like stuff. What's some inspirations for you?
How I got here, that's a good question. I got here through a lot of pain.
Didn't we all? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of pain. I think we all arrive at a spot in our lives that, in different ways and through different epiphanies. And I think mine was just knowing that I really like to I'm really good at and really love seeing and helping people take business chaos and bring it into brand clarity.
Yeah, you're on the Organizing Chaos show.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. No pun. Yeah, and really help visualize what that looks like after we've done that. See, there's a lot of great brands out there. I love Story Brand. I love what Donald Miller's doing. I love his processes. There's CJ Casciotta. I'm sorry if I said it wrong, but Thinking Weird. He just actually launched a book. People like that really are trying to help people with clarity in their messaging. But what's different, what I kind of do is I do that too, but I'm able to take that clarity and help bring
That's fine.
That's all right. help bring I don't know if it's all right.
Yeah, this is a very official show because you can see I'm holding my mic like I'm about to sing some karaoke.
You see some of the things I'm working on in the background. So
yeah, proof of working.
Transparency.
Yeah, see? There it is.
There it is. So, but what I do is I help once we give people an understanding of who that business is, I help them visualize the experience. I help them visualize everything that the customer would then go, yes, okay, I want that, or yes, I want to be a part of that movement. And I help orchestrate and design all the things that goes.
So you're not just doing like design, like as in like just like whipping something up, but you're doing like you're kind of creating like the customer's journey and kind of other. Yeah. So what are some things that maybe aren't like necessarily what we'd think of when it comes to like just design? What are some like other things that you're doing that I guess goes into this?
Okay, well, I can answer on the messaging side. It's, I believe that a brand,
right?
People are attracted to people, and personalities are attracted to similar personalities. And so, what on the messaging side, I try to figure out what personality your brand should envelop, okay, or should represent, based on the type of customers that the business wants to serve. And so once we make that clear, we're able to put a personality to the message that represents exactly who they want to serve, and that attracts people. Yeah, people are attracted to personalities that they can identify with, and so that's one thing I do on the messaging side. And then the other thing is on the design side is creating a design system that scales with your business. There's not a lot of thought sometimes behind like, hey, like if I'm gonna create these maybe illustrations that's gonna go all over my website, and they're hard to replicate, that's not very scalable. Yeah. And just thinking through even small things like that, that I've learned the hard way. Yeah. To think about. And I've done this for 15 years. Yeah. And I kind of know, like, how to leverage a design to better your business, not just design for design's sake. Right. And how to even design processes and how to design culture internally that would spark a loyalty and excitement.
Speak to that a little bit about how, because see, I've always looked at culture as something that's very operation oriented.
Yes, it is.
And then, but I've learned from you and from like our mutual friend Christian and a couple other marketing people who I've started to, like real pros who like I'm starting to get to know better and talk more, have more conversations with. There's a very marketing like kind of talks about like you guys will talk about in your pitches or with your businesses about culture, and then I'm like, oh, I thought culture was like something what I advise more on, which is like the internal stuff, but what I've come to find out, it's really a blend of the two.
It is a blend.
So tell me a little bit about how you kind of help people with culture.
Okay, so I help people with culture. It could be from the internal design of the buildings. It could be plastering all the and creating archetypes for all the pillars that your company represents. It could be like creating merchandise and things that your employees would wear around, or it could be like I did for one company, a timeline of the history of their company. Yeah. And it'd be interactive and it'd be like an onboarding tool to help really excite the onboarder.
Yeah.
To be on board with the vision and the mission, creating things like that. It does take operational thinking. It also takes messaging, but it also takes form.
How do you like work with like in the businesses that you're working with? They're most of them already established, or you work mostly with new businesses?
Yeah, it's a good question. Some people are they have a budget and they have a vision and they know, they kind of have an idea what they want, and they just say, let's do this together, and I'm kind of their sidekick.
Gotcha.
Or there's people that there's complete confusion and chaos, and it's even a medium-sized business, and they did their best with creating a foundation, but they feel like they need to reset that foundation. Gotcha. And then there's other people, like large companies, that just need help with a specific project.
So when you go into some of these businesses that are already existing or whatever, do you work like I guess who all do you typically work with? Like I assume the owner in many cases.
Yeah, the CEO or the maybe chief marketing officer.
Okay.
If it's a larger company, I just recently there was a customer that I can't disclose, but I was hired to talk to the CEOs. They were an established medical company, and I went in there and basically spearheaded an entire messaging and discovery for them. Yeah. And they were surprised at what business they really were in. And so just from the questions and the things I get them to start thinking about, sometimes they come out with a destination they never thought they didn't think about. Yeah. And what I love about it, and Danny, this is, I think, the reason why we both are in this business in different ways, but the same is, I really love seeing the people I serve this anxiety come off their shoulders. Yeah. I just when we get to a certain point in the meeting, when you just see something turn on in them, or there is a renewed passion that sparks.
What do you find usually is keeping people from letting go of that anxiety and moving into a better place?
What's keeping them from it?
Yeah, well, I mean, what's keeping them holding on to this anxiety?
The fear of missing out. I feel like the best antidote for great branding is focus. I think.
So like fear of missing out on other customers that you shouldn't be focusing on.
I think the biggest hurdle that most entrepreneurs have to come to grips with is that they can't serve everybody. Yeah. And they have to have focus on a particular industry. And if you don't focus, it's like a shotgun effect. You're just going to just shoot something, and hopefully something will hit a customer's heart. Yeah. But if you know exactly the focus, who you are, who you want to serve, what your core purpose is as a business, it's like a laser beam, and it's going to hit at the heart and the core of every person they try to serve, because they are so clear. Their message is so clear. They're just so clear for themselves on what brand they want to create. Yeah. There's less effort and more effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting like focus. First of all, is it's difficult to get, and I think that's when you really spoke to, I guess, when you said the fear of missing out. Yeah. That really is all the small businesses I've worked with. Lots of times it's what's pitched or what's said is like, oh, everybody loves this, so it must be, or everybody's interested in that. And every time I hear them say that or whatever, I'm just like, I don't think that's as good as you think it is. You know what I mean? Right. But what are some of the questions, like just like maybe one or two like questions that you would ask someone who is an owner of a business? So like, right. So that's where a lot of small business owners are listening to this podcast. What are some of the questions that, like, if they can't afford you yet, or they're not ready to move out, like what is a question or two or something they should be asking themselves kind of to start thinking about how they can begin to remove this fog and get more clear?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one is I really like telling people to list out topics they really, truly are interested in going
just as a person?
As a person. Topics. As a person. Or if it's a business, it'd be like, what matters to you?
What matters to the business?
What matters to you most? Why did you start this business in the first place? Who are your customers, and why do you care about helping them? Things like that.
Yeah.
And what are you the best at, and why are you unique about? Why are you unique in that space?
Mm-hmm.
And so another thing would be like, why would someone come to you to solve the problem that you say you can solve when they can go to the guy over there,
right,
or the guy over there? What makes your brand, different?
That's a topic I want to talk about soon, and you would be able to speak much more about this than I would, but I'm going to do like a kind of high level overview of it. But really, it's just when I see businesses who feel like they're in competition with other businesses, it's like, no, you don't have to be. When you're authentic, you become unique.
Yes.
And then when you're unique, it's really hard for anyone else to be really duplicating that, exactly, at least.
Right.
And if they're duplicating it and it's not unique to them, you're going to kill it. And they won't, because they're going to be doing basically like a fake ripoff version of it.
You nailed it right in the head there. There was a customer I was working with, and we're like, man, we're a design agency. Like it's actually a design agency I was serving, and like, what makes us unique? We do things like every other design agency, it seems like. It's like, well, look around you. You may have services that are the same, but what's not the same is you. I mean, if you feel like you're in an industry that there's a lot of people doing what you do, and you can't find that differentiator, you're the differentiator.
That's a good point.
And your background and the history of your business and how you serve could be different.
How do you think you can move past more of that, moving more into your authentic self? And honestly, I feel like I'm in the middle of this.
Me too.
Me
too.
And I think it's part of starting your own business.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned you're on 9 or 10 months now. I just passed the year mark.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it feels like the things keep getting better for me the more I just own who I am and go forward with it. I have maybe some thought, and I probably shared them in past podcasts, so I don't want to rehash it. People are here to hear what you have to say. So what are some of the things that you've done as you've moved into? Because basically what you have to share is essentially what everyone needs to hear, which is how have you moved into becoming more you?
Gosh, that's a great question. Have you thought of doing this for a living?
Trying.
All right, good. Man. It's been I'm gonna be transparent here. And
please.
That's the number one thing, is being transparent.
100%.
Is it's been tough for me these past 9 months.
Yeah.
The reason it has is because I felt like I was trying to be something I wasn't for a while. Okay. And people were telling me I was a certain thing. And I really had to come to grips with myself saying, you know what, Marcus, you have to be a leader learner constantly. And you can either fake it till you make it, or you can be refreshingly transparent.
See, I think that there's a moment that everyone has where there is a small fake it till you make it moment.
Yes.
I was talking about this with Gabe McCauley, actually, when I interviewed him.
Okay.
And we talked about that because he was talking about his filmmaking stuff that he's been doing, and then how like his process was. And we both kind of admitted, do you feel like there's a part where you do a little bit fake it till you make it? And I really don't think that you're so much faking it, is that you're having to fake yourself out, because we all have varying degrees of imposter syndrome. Some people have less of it. Some people have more of it. Excuse me. And I think that the more you have, the more difficult it is to move into that authentic space. So I don't know. I do think that there's kind of it's a little bit of a combination of those two things.
It is.
It's just my experience.
No, it is. Yeah, faking it, saying yes, I can do this, I think is one thing, but trying to deceive the outside world.
Yeah,
into
I
thinking
follow
that
what you're saying.
That's kind of what I meant. But the thing is what I was going to say is that we have, there's a lot of fear that's built up in a lot of small businesses and business in general. And a lot of people are trying to be unique and what's really hard is I'm seeing people come out with books that have other people's content in it, And I think part of me being a creative and a creator is I don't ever want to rehash things. I want to create something new, but then I'm realizing yes, and this is an old saying, nothing's new under the sun.
Yeah.
But I've learned that I have to just be me.
Yeah.
And I just have to be okay with where I'm at right now and not have to stress myself out in trying to come up with something so unique that I become paralyzed in my movement.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I want to do is I want to teach. I want to teach and I want to coach people more than design. I want to work with other people to design it or plan it out for them. Right now it's just me, so that's all I can do. But I realize it's okay to partner and to go out and say, hey, I got this from this person. I got this from this person.
Yeah.
People want curation. They want like what you're doing. You're curating people like me to talk about things on your show.
Yeah, I believe what my mission is, and I think as all teachers is you're taking something that, all the books you've read, right? Or the ones that have been most impactful, something complex, and distilling it into something more, and distilling it into something simpler, insight that you can pass on, much more manageable, or much more easily consumed than like, hey, go read all these 10 books, and then come back and it's,
So anyway, and the journey is that journey that you're asking about is I come to realize through someone else, me asking the right questions and say, hey, who do you see me as? How have you experienced me? And why do you come to me to serve you? You got to ask your customers those questions. Because if you never do that, then you never know how you're being perceived. Yeah. And if they're telling you things that perception that you love, great job. But if they're perceiving you as someone that you're not internally and that you don't want to be, then there's got to be course correction. And so only until just recently, when I told you about the chaos, bringing the chaos into order, that was from a customer. I actually asked him. I said, why do you come to me? And he's like, man, you're just so good at putting chaos, getting things out of my head and making it all work out. And that really was a gift to me.
Yeah, just to hear what other people
to hear what the effects of what.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think we're resonating so hard now. That it's. I know. I just recently, not recently, I guess it was one of my earlier clients, and I asked him, why it was working out with me and it hadn't with a previous person they'd worked with. And he said, well, I think it's just because, and he just described me. He was just like, oh, well, you're like this young bearded guy and, you ride a motorcycle around. You make
great stickers of your face.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just like, and I've mentioned the motorcycle, to be clear, I'm not a biker, not what you'd consider a biker, but I do have a motorcycle. Right. But he just described me. And that's what it was that he said is the reason that it was working. And so I found that I just need to continue to press on in that regards, and it's and it's so interesting. I love seeing how things connect or how things are, I don't believe in the idea of everything being separate, especially when you just talk about work and your personal life or whatever being separate, especially when you become an entrepreneur or at least a consultant, freelancer, how we are, it's very much blends together, and you have fun at certain meetings and, it's less fun during other certain meetings, or certain projects are more fun, but other projects are less fun. So there's kind of this blending of enjoying yourself and then not, that it's I don't know. It's just I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, it's great. It's
basically
the
just
buzz of the buzz.
So the basically what I was going towards was just how when you're the business, the same thing you're telling a business is the same thing that a person needs to know when they're first starting out. You know what I mean? So you're telling a business this later on when they've kind of like, you know, amassed all this, you know, baggage, if you will, or whatever. And then you've got people like you and me, you know, we're having to do the same thing. And that now we're telling other small business owners the same thing. Like, move more into your authentic self, and you'll be happier, and your message will be clearer and be more authentic.
Yeah, it's true.
But it is hard to kind of get those words, I think, and for that matter, design, you know, they go hand in hand, to be able to really just articulate, here's who I am, or here's who we are, and here's what we want to do and why we want to do it.
Yeah. And yes, and yes. And the big thing is it's not just design, the actual look of things, but it's actually the design of how you approach your customers as a business. You have to design that. That's a design.
It has to be intentional.
It's an intentional. Yeah. It's intentional.
I think so many small businesses.
That should be another definition.
That's
of design.
a good. Intentional. I always tell people intentional hiring. Because, you know, so many small businesses, when they hire, it's very haphazard. It's like, oh, your brother needs a job, cool, bring him on in. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, you'll work for minimum wage, all right, you're hired.
That's right.
And then they were like, man, it's so hard to find good help. And it's like, it's because you're not hiring intentionally. So I think intention, you're right, it's just like, it's another thing that just like it applies everywhere.
Right.
You know, be intentional about it. So, dude, this has been fantastic. And in fact, it was funny because like I told you before the show, I wanted to ask you about something that was really helpful for you. And we hit it, like, just we're talking about just the whole moving into being transparent, like sharing. You said, let me just be honest here for a moment. Like, that's what I really want people to be able to hear on this podcast, and especially the point of these interviews is to hear, like, you're not alone. No, like all these problems that we face as small business owners. Some of us are solopreneurs like you and me. Actually, I have an admin assistant, so I don't know if I'm completely alone now. If I still qualify as solopreneur, but and then you got the businesses that are 20, 25, 35, that's right. And even higher. Really, the problems. Our mutual friend Chris Coyne, who's consulted with much larger businesses than I have, and we talked about that, just how it's everywhere. So it's almost like I was like, I think it's just human nature, really. That's why we find these patterns, whether in the businesses 2 people or 35 or 100. And so it's like, that's why I want people to hear these stories, these authentic stories, and know that they're not alone, and to hopefully learn some of the things that we've learned along the way. So. That's right. That's right. Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. Where can people find out more information about you?
Yeah, if you want, you can just type in that name, meazzo.com, Meazzo. That's how you say it. And you can see my site. I am going to be doing possibly some workshops. Very cool. Locally. And then I'm hoping soon to write a book. But
that's awesome.
But that's down the road. Yeah. But I do have booklets and workshops and stuff that if you're interested, we can do small, we can do a larger workshop, and you can just go on there and schedule an appointment.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it. If you ever have any questions or you're interested in being interviewed on the show as well, you have something to share with the small business audience, you can email me, Danny@DannyColeman.me. You can also, my website, www.dannycoleman.me. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Not that I really use Twitter. I always say this, but I just feel like I got to put that out there. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going to stop saying Twitter. It's at the same username for both. I am Danny Coleman. And do you have an Instagram?
Yeah, actually, Meazzo Design Company. So
cool. All right, yeah. Follow us on Instagram. You get to see our awesome, cool lives, being solopreneurs and figuring it out. So, boom. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Have an excellent rest of your day. We'll see you later.
Want more? Go to DannyColeman.me to download Danny's free small business hiring guide, which includes tips, templates, and tools, plus a step-by-step process you can use to find and keep high-quality employees for your small team or business.